Today's Talk About It Tuesday question is, what are the three biggest financial mistakes that people make that can be avoided? Woo, this is an easy question for me. I've been consulting for people for over 20 years, and the three things that are most consistent, and I don't care what age they are, they can be young, they can be elders, it doesn't matter. These three mistakes are by far the biggest, and they won't be new to you because I mention them all the time. But for some reason, people just don't do it in time. So, three biggest mistakes. Number one is creating a budget, right? And when I say budget, let me just be clear with that. Some people think budgeting means restriction. No, I don't mean restriction. I mean tracking all of your income and all of your expenses. And you would be surprised how many people I say, well, how much do you make? And their only number in their head is what their salary is, but that doesn't account for taxes and different other deductions for insurance or Social Security. Like, they have no idea really how much they're actually taking home, and other sources of income that they might have, they didn't even add in it too. So you have to know exactly how much money is coming in and exactly every single dime that goes out. So even when I ask, well, how much are you spending? Because people have no idea where their money's going, right? And they say, well, I don't have money to do this, I don't have money to do that. If you buy a pack of bubble gum, that has to be accounted for. You can't just dismiss that because it's a small expense. It's still an expense. So really, and I think mint.com is a free app you can use to do that if you don't like. I like old paper and pencil method myself, but there are free apps that you can use to track all of your income, all of your expenses. If you don't know exactly how much is coming in, exactly how much is going out, you don't know where you are. Are you in a deficit every month? Are you misallocating funds? Are you not allocating enough money in certain places? Are you just wasting money that's totally unaccounted for? You do not know if you don't track your income and your expenses. So the biggest mistake, you cannot improve anything unless you track it. You just have to do it, right? And it doesn't take much to set up. And it doesn't take a lot of time to account for it, right? So real simple, budgeting is the number one mistake people make that ends up messing them up in the long run. Number two, people just don't invest early enough. I get a lot of people in their 40s and 50s that come to me, 60s. I've had 70-year-old come to me that want to start investing. And I'm not saying there's ever a time when you shouldn't, right? If you're already 40, 50, 60, 70, yes, you have to start. But if you had started, and I always tell everybody, listen, when you're 18, 19, 20, I started my kids, and they weren't necessarily consistent, but at 18, it was like, listen, you're setting up a brokerage account, you're going to set up these accounts, you're going to start investing. Now, whether they stay consistent on it, right, that's not really up to me, but you should introduce it early. And if you're young, or whatever age you are, start now, because investing works based off of time in, right? So people think it's like a job. It's not like a job where there's this one-to-one exchange. It's about compounded growth, and compounding only happens over time. So the longer you're in it, no matter how little you put, the longer you're in it, the greater your growth is going to be. And obviously, the shorter time you're in it, the smaller the growth is. And it's not a linear effect. Compounding means it grows exponentially. So again, the longer you're in it, the greater your returns are going to be in the long run. So you don't wait until people say, I don't have any money. You do have money. Go back to your budget and cut out the bubble gum. If you have $25 when you're 25 years old, invest that $25 because it will compound and grow to an enormous amount by the time you're 40, 50, 60. So not investing early enough is number two. And number three, and I could have put it at number one because there's no particular order in this, not having an emergency fund. You cannot wait until there's an emergency to establish an emergency fund. I don't get it. Most people, it's a weird thing, right? You before you invest, you should have your emergency fund. Before you buy a big purchase, right? you should have an emergency fund. So before you buy your car, before you buy your house, before you do all these things where it takes a lot of money or even a little money over a lot of time, you need to establish an emergency fund, because you do not know, you cannot predict when an emergency is going to occur, and you can't wait until that time, because what happens is people end up using their credit and go into debt, right? Or they have to borrow from somewhere else and go into debt. So establish an emergency fund, and again, you got to know what an emergency is, and that's kind of personal. People, listen, if you don't have $1,000 on the side, something's wrong, right? So you have to have $1,000 at least, but you can kind of build it up. Some people, I think, go too much. They have 3, 4, 6 months worth of all of their expenses or all of their income. I think that's a little much. Some of that could be invested, but you have to have an emergency fund, right? So those are the 3 things. I think not knowing where your income and your expenses, not knowing exactly what your income and expenses are, right? A budget, not investing early, and not having an emergency fund. And I could go on. There are about 10 other things that are very common mistakes that are avoidable that people make. But I think those are the top 3 that are the most impactful, I should say. All right. So those are the 3 that I think are the most impactful, that are super common, that are easily avoided and easily fixed right now that we said it. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. What mistakes you think a lot of people make that are avoidable and costly. But please like, share, subscribe, keep the questions coming, and I'll see you next Tuesday.